It's connecting, preparing to live stream the meeting. Good afternoon, everyone, and this is us still in the WEN Symposium to celebrate our International Women's Day. I have on the third panel this afternoon a session where we would call it Refining Trends. So how women can feature in the changing landscape of refining across Africa and the increase of private sector involvement. I would be introducing the moderator. Jessica Atkinson is the Regional Human Resource Manager of Sahara Group. Jessica, enjoy your panel.
Thank you, Charlotte. My name is Jessica Akintade, and welcome to panel 3, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here today. I'm also the deputy leader for the Human Capital Work Group of the African Refiners and Distributors Association, ARDA. Okay, so today I have the great honor and privilege to moderate a panel of 3 distinguished persons with combined years of experience of over a century. We'll be discussing on refining trends and how women can feature in the changing landscape of refining across Africa and the increased involvement of the private sector. Thank you, Engineer Tony, and thank you, Madam Marieme. I see you on the call. Thank you so much for joining the session today. Okay, so the session is going to be quite insightful. We're going to be speaking about refining trends across Africa and why women seem to have low representation in the oil and gas sector. We're also going to be speaking about the role of the private sector organizations and what they need to do to make the collaboration with the female gender better. So without further ado, I'll just go in and introduce my esteemed panel members. First off, I have Engineer Tony. Engineer Tony has over 40 years of experience in the oil and gas industry before retiring from the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, as a Group Executive Director, Refineries and Petrochemicals in December 2013. He was the Executive Project Manager that oversaw the construction and commissioning of the Nigerian LNG trains 4, 5, and 6, which added 12.6 million tons per annum to the plant capacity. He's currently the Managing Consultant in Gas and Energy Resources Consulting Limited, Nigeria Limited, and the MD of Gas and Energy Resources Consulting Limited. You're welcome to the panel, Engineer. I hope I did justice to that bio. You have an extremely wonderful biography. Welcome to the panel, sir.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. On the panel, I have Madame Marieme Ndoye Decraene. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Madame. Madame Marieme is breaking frontiers and challenging the norm. She is the Director General and the CEO of the Societe Africaine de Raffinage, please excuse my poor French, in Dakar, Senegal. This is the position she's held since November 11, 2020. Prior to SAR, she led the Senegalese government's UFC MCA Senegal 2 Compact for 4 years. They were charged with designing a program and associated projects to address barriers to economic growth to the country's energy sector. She served as a director of roads in the Senegalese Ministry of Infrastructure and Land Transport and has held other positions over the course of her career. Bonjour, madame. Welcome to the panel again.
Thank you.
All right, so we're supposed to also have Dr. Fatona. I think he's having some technical challenges, so I believe he might join the call. But we'll just go ahead and proceed with the panels we have signed on now. Okay, so I'm going to give my panel members a few minutes to dive into the topic. I'm sure my audience as well are looking forward to this. I would love to have your quick take on the topic today, which is how women can feature in the changing landscape of refining across Africa. Engineer Tony, let me start with you, sir. Would you like to give your comments on the topic, please?
Thank you very much, Jessica, and the audience. It's my pleasure to be here to share our thoughts on the topic. I had discussed on the fact that we are talking about refining trends and then what impact that you'll have on women in that space and private sector involvement. And I thought it was important that we look at some very important emerging trends in refining as a whole. Now, the world has been very concerned about the growing temperatures in the climate change, for short. And this has really been pinned down to increasing burning of fossil fuels all over the world and the resultant release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And these carbon dioxide, they are greenhouse gases, which then result in increasing temperature across the world. As a result of this, the fact is that the refining industry is going to be seriously affected by this concern across the whole world. It's true the world enjoys, driving fast cars and things like that, but we must live if we are to enjoy. So what has therefore happened is that we see a number of things taking place. Refineries are actually closing down around the world. That is the truth, number one. So what do the ones who hope to survive need to do to enable them survive? A number of things. Number one, we must become more efficient in our processes. We must generate less carbon dioxide. We must release fewer emissions into the atmosphere. We must carry out our refining in such a manner that the efficiency is higher, the capacity utilization is higher, the productivity is higher. And that is why it is important, therefore, that we as refiners look at these areas. What this has meant is that smaller refineries, which by their very nature are less economical and less viable, have tended to shut down. And so one very important growing trend is that it's the bigger capacity refineries that will survive more easily. So if you're planning a refinery project, you have to think in terms of capacity. The next thing is that there is going to be progressively less and less demand for fossil fuels. So refiners then have to begin to think about how to make their refineries more viable, more relevant to the needs of the future. And the needs of the future are petrochemical products. All of us live in houses, we drive cars, and most of the things we see around us are petrochemical derivatives. Therefore, the refineries that are able to generate petrochemical feedstocks are the ones that will be in demand in the future. If you focus mainly on producing fossil fuels, you are going to, go out of business. The third thing, which is important, is that there is a growing demand for higher quality products. Products which have less sulfur, less benzene, less aromatics in them. Because these three things I've just mentioned now are harmful to human health. And the studies carried out by the United Nations Environment Programme have shown that about 2.4 million people die across the world every year as a result of these things being released into the atmosphere from cars burning fuel that has high sulfur content, high benzene, high aromatics, and so on. So that is why it is very important that we improve the quality of our products. The African Refiners Association, of which Madam Marieme is the current president, has been very, very active, working together with the African Union, ECOWAS, and co, to improve the quality of products, but that will come up later in the presentation. The last aspect, which I want to just address, is that of automation and digitization. The older refineries tended to be more, electromechanical, that sort of thing. And these days, everybody wants to be more efficient. And so there's more automation, more digitization. And when this is the case, you have a chance to increase your productivity, and you have a chance to attract more of both sexes. It doesn't matter whether you are male or female, once you are good in IT and you are good in digitization and automation, you are relevant. So that is where I think the women have a place to play, a part to play, and the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Tony. You've said so many insightful things. I was taking notes, by the way. And one of the things that stood out for me is the 2.4 million people dying across the world because of the emissions, and so sometimes people think or, feel like these things are not important, but when you look at the numbers, it's a scary thing. And I can't overemphasize the role of technology. If the pandemic taught us anything, is that technology has come to stay. Is playing a very significant role in the world right now. So one of the things, two things that resonated with me is that we need to make our processes more efficient. That cannot be overemphasized. Then we need to ensure we release fewer emissions into the atmosphere. Those are just fantastic points, Engineer Tony. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to go right to Madam Marieme. I know you have a presentation. So you're going to share a slide. So we just do that now and have you talk through the slides, Madam.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you all for your interest. And first of all, I would like to extend my congratulations to Win and Win for the relevance of the topic that concerned us at first. Instance that, the sense it contributes to the reflection on inclusion and equity issues. As you know, my English is not really good, so I would like to share the presentation in just 4 short slides. But before that, I would like to also thank Win and Win for the honor you conferred on ARDA and SAR through my person by inviting me to participate on this panel. Thank you. The first slide is just to introduce SAR and ARDA, as you know, in French, because well, you have the presentation in English, so you can read, because you don't have a lot of time to translate. Maybe Serine, who is with us, can translate when we will be on the question session. So I would like to speak in French, just for introducing first ARDA and SAR. First, ARDA qui a pour mission de servir, d'être le lead en Afrique dans la transition vers des carburants plus propres. ARDA qui a été créé en 2000, vous le savez, en 2006, et qui a surtout pour rôle donc d'être une voie unifiée pour les raffineurs africains, mais aussi les distributeurs indépendants, les régulateurs et tout ce qui est marketeurs indépendants. Également, comme rôle, l'ARDA, vous le savez, c'est de supporter donc les efforts en investissement donc pour tout ce qui concerne la chaîne d'approvisionnement africain de l'aval pétrolier. Également, il s'agit pour l'ARDA de promouvoir les échanges d'expériences entre ses membres. Pour ce qui concerne la SAR, vous savez, c'est un outil stratégique majeur dans la politique énergétique de l'État du Sénégal. Et elle a commencé sa production en 1963 avec aujourd'hui une capacitation de 1,2 million de tonnes par an. On peut aller sur la slide number 2, please, Charlotte. Just on this slide, you can see the low representation of women in the African refining and distribution industry, even in the quantity, aussi bien au niveau quantitatif qu'au niveau qualitatif, on voit une faible représentation. The second slide, please. Okay, yes. Thank you, Charlotte. Don't worry. Alors, on voit à gauche, on the right, à droite plutôt, au point de vue qualitatif, nous avons une faible représentativité des femmes au niveau donc du top management, donc des comités, au niveau des conseils d'administration et autres. Juste une femme en moyenne qui est présente à ce niveau-là. Et au niveau de la distribution, ça c'est au niveau des raffineurs, mais au niveau des distributeurs, de la chaîne de distribution, la moyenne tourne autour de 3%. Au Sénégal, bien sûr, vous savez, je suis la seule femme, enfin, je ne suis pas la seule, je suis la première femme directrice générale donc, de la SAR et la seule femme qui est au niveau du conseil d'administration de la SAR. Au point de vue quantitatif, on voit aussi une faible représentativité des femmes avec une moyenne de 16% donc au niveau des raffineurs et puis peut-être un peu plus au niveau de 33% au niveau de la chaîne de distribution. Donc, c'est pour vous donner un peu, just for giving you the a picture of the low representation of women in the African refining and distribution industry. This is for introducing my the three areas I would like to focus. Okay. Third slide, please, Charlotte. Thank you. Alors, tout ça pour juste partager avec vous les trois champs de réflexion que je voudrais partager avec vous pour dire un peu comment est-ce que nous pensons que par rapport en agissant sur ces trois axes, les femmes, on peut contribuer à l'impact donc des femmes dans le secteur du raffinage et de l'industrie, en tout cas du raffinage en Afrique. La première chose, c'est d'abord en termes de capacitation, donc de capacité. Et la deuxième chose, c'est également au niveau du leadership. Et la troisième chose, c'est au niveau politique. D'abord, au point de vue de l'éducation, nous pensons que c'est un impératif parce que c'est à la base, it's a key, hein, donc c'est une des premières, disons, clés de succès par rapport, disons, à l'impact que les femmes peuvent avoir dans ce secteur-là. Et il est essentiel pour nous de pouvoir inciter les jeunes filles à s'orienter vers des formations qui leur permettent d'accéder donc à ce monde donc du raffinage et de la distribution. À ce niveau, nous avons peut-être trois recommendations que vous voyez ici. C'est d'abord pouvoir animer des activités au niveau des écoles de secondaire, au niveau des lycées, pour pouvoir, disons, inciter les femmes à comprendre, à aller vers ces métiers-là et aussi à s'intéresser à ça et à comprendre un peu les possibilités de carrière au niveau de ce secteur-là. Ensuite, il est important d'informer les professionnels donc, de l'orientation scolaire également sur les métiers avec des perceptions qui peuvent biaiser un peu et qui peuvent toucher un peu l'intérêt des jeunes filles à aller vers le secteur du raffinage, l'industrie du raffinage et de la distribution. Ensuite, nous pensons qu'il est important d'adapter un peu, de faire des formations spécifiques avec une politique d'insertion au niveau des entreprises qui puisse favoriser donc l'insertion des femmes avec une discrimination positive qu'on peut faire au niveau avec les femmes. Ensuite, au niveau du leadership, nous pensons également que ça, c'est un axe extrêmement important avec des barrières culturelles. Vous savez, nous sommes en Afrique et il y a des barrières culturelles pour que des femmes puissent accéder à certains métiers, notamment dans le secteur donc, de l'industrie du raffinage. Et aujourd'hui, nous pensons que l'ARDA, vous l'avez dit, Jessica, vous êtes un exemple patent puisque vous êtes un leader, vous leadez un groupe de travail, vous co-leadez un groupe de travail de l'ARDA sur le capital humain. Donc ça, c'est un exemple que je donne. Également, en termes de politique d'engagement, nous pensons qu'en agissant sur ce levier-là, nous pouvons inciter en fait les femmes à être beaucoup plus, à participer, à contribuer au mieux dans le secteur avec, disons, un levier qui porte sur le genre dans l'économie et qui peut aider également. En dernier slide, parce que là, je pense que mon temps d'intervention est terminé, juste pour donner juste l'exemple de comment, de l'ARDA. The last slide, Charlotte, please. Okay, just for giving for showing how ARDA help on this area with some working group leading by women. We have the working group on regulation and the working group on human capital with women as Jessica. So thank you very much, Jessica, for giving me the floor. It's what I would like. I had to share with you on how women can, in Africa, change in raffining landscape and increasing private sector participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam. I kept telling myself I wish I could speak French to do justice to recap this in French, but my French is really terrible. All I'm just going to say, and I can say, is bonjour. So that was an amazing presentation. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but I think it's worthy of mention to say that Madam Marieme is the first ever female DG of SAR. That is a big deal. And she's the only second female president of ARDA in its 15-year history. So well done, Madam. You're an example to many women that I know, and you'll continue to break the frontiers, and I'm so honored to be on this panel. That was a fantastic presentation. So, I know that ARDA is one of the ARDA supports women inclusion, and I'm not just saying that because I'm the deputy speaker of the Human Capital Work Group. I know that for a fact. And one of the things that stood out for me in your presentation, Madam, is that young ladies must be encouraged to choose training courses that will aid entry into the oil and gas industry. So this tells me that it's not just about feeling like the table is set for you. All you need to do is come in. You need to work. You need to actually be deliberate and choose these courses that will help you get into the oil and gas industry. Another thing you mentioned is that government policies, organizational policies must be encouraged, because it's not enough to just sit down and wait. The government, the industries, the private sectors need to get into this conversation, because the reality is that the women are not going anywhere. We're going to continue breaking this frontier. So thank you so much for that presentation, Madam. Thank you so much. So I think we can just go into the Q&A session, the much awaited Q&A session with Engineer Tony. Engineer Tony, I'm going to start with you, sir. I know you have several years of experience. So my question to you, Engineer, is what do you think the outlook on the refining sector will be in the coming years? Seeing the shift in regulatory policies to favor renewable energy. Would you like me to take that question again, sir?
No, that's all right. I quite understand. If you also listened to my introduction, I explained that the dependence on fossil fuels has had a negative impact on the climate in the world as a whole. And so the increasing regulation is actually an attempt by authorities to reduce that carbon footprint. And therefore, you find that for most process industries, refineries, gas plants, and so on, there's an increasing pressure for them to become less impactful on the environment in terms of emissions. And even in terms of how the plants are designed, there is this concept of carbon neutrality that has been put forward as a target for process industries to work towards. That is, look at what you can do within your plant such that by the year 2050, you will become carbon neutral in terms of the impact. So you will have no impact at all. Right now, we have a situation where there are flares in every refinery. There are emissions coming from the equipment that are used in the refinery. There are also fugitive emissions which come from leaks on flanges, pipelines, and so on. So it is very important, therefore, for every refiner to face up to the fact that this regulation is going to get more serious, not less so, but more so. We have the situation right now in Europe that refineries are shutting down because they are no longer able to meet the regulatory standards which have been introduced. For example, we talked about quality of fuels. In those days, you used to have allowed as much as 1,000 parts per million in premium motor spirit. Now that went down progressively to 500, then to 200, to 100, to 50. In Europe now, it's down to 10 parts per million. And so if you had a refinery, which was built very long ago, inefficient processes, you are no longer going to be able to operate, period. In Europe, if you have done nothing to improve your processes. That is why we've seen a number of them shutting down. A few that are operating are doing so simply because they're able to export their products to Africa and other countries where the standards are still lax. But even in Africa, there's the growing trend to push for the same tighter standards. And that is why any refiner who hopes to survive must, as a matter of necessity, improve their processes. The African Refiners and Distributors Association has been working with ECOWAS, working with the African Union to push for 50 parts per million to be accepted as the standard, and therefore this regulation very soon will become law, and that will grow in most places. So any refiner who is unable to meet it will have to shut down. So the reality is that for us refiners, we must face up to the impact of tighter regulation.
Engineer Tony, as always, you're always on point. Now, I mean, you're right when you say that, for a sustainable business, refiners need to be seen to, adhere strictly to regulations. And you're very right about that, because we need to move from, just talking to actually doing what is right and setting the standards and following it. Thank you, sir. That was very, very apt. That was very apt. Madam Marieme, I know you have an interpreter who would help with the Q&A. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask the question and have your interpreter help with the translation, if that's okay. Okay, so my question to you, Madam, is the International Women's Day event was celebrated globally. We had so many people, both genders, coming in and saying, I choose to challenge. Some people were saying, I choose to challenge things like equal opportunity in the workplace and so on. As the CEO, SAR, what role do you think the male gender should play in reducing the gender gap in the oil and gas sector, especially in refining?
C'est bon, vous avez besoin, je traduis la question?
C'est bon,
okay. All right, go ahead.
OK. Si je comprends bien, c'est le rôle du genre.
Des femmes, c'est ça. Des femmes dans la réduction du fossé, de la présence des femmes dans l'industrie du gaz et du pétrole.
Non, le rôle du genre masculin ou des femmes, je n'ai pas compris.
Were you talking about the male or female role in reducing the gap?
The male role, please. What role does the male?
Des hommes.
Voilà, c'est bien ce que j'avais compris. En réalité, nous attendons plus d'action de notre côté que du côté de la gente féminine. De notre côté, en termes de capacitation, en termes d'engagement, en termes de leadership. Mais nous pouvons espérer de la gente féminine, de la gente masculine, pardon, plus d'ouverture, plus moins de perception, donc de choses, de perception erronée, je veux dire, par rapport à la capacité des femmes dans un secteur à majorité masculine. Et je pense que par rapport à ce point-là, l'exemple du Sénégal, c'est un exemple qui peut être cité disons, un cas d'école. Je suis, comme vous l'avez dit tout à l'heure, Jessica, la première femme à être directrice générale de la SAR. Donc, également, il faut savoir qu'au niveau du Sénégal, tout ça, c'est parce qu'il y a un homme, donc le président de la République, Macky Sall, qui a fait confiance, qui a cette ouverture d'esprit et cette générosité d'esprit pour faire confiance aux femmes, mais qui se sont d'abord capacitées en termes de formation, mais aussi en termes de leadership, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, autour des 3 axes de réflexion. Également, je pense qu'à ce niveau-là, c'est vraiment tout ce qui est, disons, leadership, tout ce qui est genre, mais surtout, encore une fois, pour répondre à votre question, ce qu'on peut attendre de la gente masculine, c'est vraiment se libérer de cette perception négative qu'ils ont de la capacité des femmes à impacter, à contribuer davantage à ce secteur pour que nos économies, pour favoriser la croissance de nos économies en Afrique. Serine.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for your question. To answer to your question, I think that both men and women are expected to act for equal opportunities in the gas and oil sector, particularly in the refining sector. As far as women are concerned, I am thinking of capacity building and leadership skills, etc. But I hope we will be able to rely on men for more openness and generosity in order to correct misperceptions surrounding the refining industry in terms of constraints and capacities. And I even can mention the example of Senegal. You know, I am the first woman as DG of a company, and this, I think we have to thank President Macky Sall, the president of Senegal, who has this who is open-minded and has the generosity to trust women. Just to sum it up, I think that women has a role to play, which is to give themselves the capacity and also to have the leadership skills, but they also need help or support from the male partners in order to get into the oil and gas sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam. And you're right, we definitely need the support of the male gender. We cannot do this alone. We need them to collaborate with us and, you know, break these frontiers and give us the opportunity to even break these frontiers. Thank you very much. Engineer Tony, I have so many questions coming in for you, but before I go into the questions that have been put on the comment section, I'm just going to ask you, as an advisor to the African Refiners and Distributors Association, ARDA, you know, for the ECOWAS region, what would you say, sir, are the core competencies required in the refining sector? And how can this be impressed on the younger aspiring generation, especially the female gender?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, there is a growing trend towards automation in the sector, not just in terms of the distributed control systems, which have become standard, DCS systems, but even in maintenance practice. We now have computerized maintenance management systems. We have HR systems, which depend also on computerization. And we have a lot of systems which have been digitized. So I would advise any young person, especially the ladies, who want to have a career in the refineries to also improve their skills, their IT skills, their familiarity with packages which enable them to interact. And these interactions are relevant whether you are male or female. I would like to say, in addition to what Madam Marieme said earlier, that yes, it is good for the men to encourage more women to come into the sector. But I want to say that the women themselves should realize that these days, the sector is looking for people who produce results. I have a niece who did chemical engineering. I don't know if I influenced her in choosing chemical engineering as her career, but she did. And then when she finished, she got a job with a petroleum, an upstream petroleum company for that matter. And she was on the rig and on the platforms, and she excelled. And she became a tool pusher, you know. She became a leader of her crew. And I think the other men were a bit surprised. They thought, you know, my goodness, this girl, but she excelled. So yes, go for it, and improve your skills. And as you improve your skills, you will get the opportunity. In fact, she's gone on from the upstream to now consulting in McKinsey. She's consulting for McKinsey. I mean, so really, I think the stereotypes which we had in the past are coming down. And I encourage ladies to realize that you can go for it. Don't hold yourself back anymore. Yes, we will do what we can to encourage it, but go for it. Take the opportunities. Thank you.
Engineer, I think we have a hashtag for this panel, hashtag go for it, ladies. That was a very, very good one. I'm going to be saying that, go for it, ladies. Okay, so Engineer, I'm going to put you on the spot right now and ask you a question which has been put across all the platforms for you, sir. So the question is, why is hydroelectricity abandoned in Nigeria? And what is the future of young girls venturing into that type of renewable energy? So it's, why is hydroelectricity abandoned in Nigeria? And what is the future of young girls venturing into that type of renewable energy?
Nigeria has been said to be an oil-producing country. However, in recent times, it has become clear that we are more a gas producing country than even an oil producing country. So we have huge gas reserves. As a result of that, as a result of the misconception of us being an oil producing country, for so many years, the oil was being produced and the gas was being flared. And so you had for decades that so much flaring of gas was going on. And from what we have said earlier, this was damaging the environment because the releases were massive in so many places. Not only was it damaging the environment directly, but even the communities where the oil production was going on were being affected. You know, they never really had nighttime anymore because these flares were just lighting up the skies all over the place 24/7. So it was not sustainable. That was why the government then said, look, let's build as many gas-fired plants as possible to produce power instead of just wasting the gas. That was why there was a shift from focusing on hydroelectric generating plants to gas turbine power generating plants. That was a simple reason. But in terms of renewable energy, the truth is that the hydroelectric ones are more earth-friendly because all you do is just tumble the water down on the turbine and you generate electricity. You know, but if you burn the gas, you're still releasing carbon into the atmosphere. So really, I would like to see us reviving more and more of our hydroelectric projects and then making the gas-fired plants more efficient, less impactful on the environment. I hope that answers the question.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does, sir. I'm sure it does. Okay, so Madam Marieme, let me come to you. I have a question for you, Madam. Okay, a recent survey showed that there are high numbers of female engineers who graduate from universities yearly. However, there seems to be a disconnect between these numbers and the number that eventually make it into the oil and gas companies. What recruitment framework, and this is in my line because it's human resources, what recruitment framework can companies put in place to close this gap? Sorry, Madam, you're mute.
Yes,
okay.
I'm mute. Sorry. Céline can help for traduction. So I speak in French. Je pense que effectivement les entreprises peuvent faire beaucoup de choses. Hein. Céline, si j'ai bien compris, c'est par rapport en fait à comment les entreprises peuvent aider à combler l'écart. Hein, donc de la
oui, c'est ça. Les cadres de recrutement pour combler le gap.
Voilà. Je pense que beaucoup de choses peuvent être faites, hein, parce que effectivement, je disais tout à l'heure, que les femmes ont un rôle à jouer. Et effectivement, les femmes ont donc beaucoup d'inspiration aussi, sont source de cohésion. Hein, et donc, avec ces qualités-là également, peuvent beaucoup contribuer dans nos économies et surtout dans les entreprises qui favorisent qui sont porteuses de la croissance. Alors, le secteur privé, je dirais. Alors, par rapport à ça, nous pensons qu'effectivement, faire des activités telles que du mentorat, hein, donc aller, disons, mentorer des élèves brillants dans des écoles pour des filières qui peuvent en tout cas intéresser le secteur ou les entreprises qui évoluent dans l'industrie du raffinage, ça peut être intéressant et donc ça peut aussi impacter. Également, faire des animations scolaires dans des lycées, dans des universités, pour dire un peu quel est l'intérêt et comment est-ce que ces femmes, ou en tout cas ces jeunes filles, peuvent, disons, s'intéresser au secteur, parce que c'est un secteur qui impacte donc, les conditions de vie des populations, qui impactent disons, nos économies. Ça, c'est des choses qui peuvent favoriser. Je donne mon exemple. Moi, j'ai fait le concours d'école polytechnique de Thiès où j'ai eu mon diplôme d'ingénieur parce que je ne connaissais pas du tout l'école. Mais c'est parce que l'école polytechnique a eu à faire des animations scolaires dans mon lycée et qui nous a un peu, disons, incité à faire le concours. Et c'est comme ça que j'ai pu aller à l'école polytechnique qui a beaucoup contribué à travers ce diplôme-là que j'ai qui a beaucoup contribué à ma carrière et à là où je suis aujourd'hui. Donc vraiment, ça c'est important. Également, dans le cadre du mentorat, je pense que les entreprises puissent un peu favoriser, disons, le financement, donc en appuyant des élèves qui ont des capacités, certaines prédispositions dans les STM, donc dans les filières scientifiques. Ça peut aussi aider à un peu réduire cet écart. Parce qu'il faut le dire, c'est d'abord la bataille de la formation, ensuite la bataille de la sensibilisation, avant donc d'attirer, disons, et d'attirer l'intérêt des jeunes filles pour aller dans des secteurs du raffinage et de la distribution qui peuvent encore une fois aider nos économies à croître.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, Jessica. And as I said earlier, women are source of inspiration. They are drivers of cohesion. And I think that companies have a role to play the recruitment mechanism in order to get women in this oil and gas industry. And to me, in order to solve this problem, we need to conduct school activities at the level of schools, primary or high school, at the level of universities, in order to present students the advantages in the refining industry for women, for example, the career possibilities, and tell them about the different educational paths that can help them to get into the industry. If, for example, I take my case, I may say that I took the entrance exam to the CS engineering school thanks to awareness raising. I also think that there is need to establish scholarship program with maybe a positive discrimination criteria to attract women engineers to companies in the oil and gas sector. So roughly speaking, this is what I had about the question you asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know that my other HR professionals are logged on this call and have taken notes, and very, very good comments. Thank you so much for that. Engineer Tony, this is your final question because we're running out of time and I have to bring this session to an end, but I must ask you this question. So if you can briefly just answer in say 30 seconds, how would you say Africa is preparing for harmonization of clean fuel specifications in line with the ARDA Afri for roadmap? I had to ask you this question, sir.
Thank you very much. The African Union has been responsive to the contacts which ARDA has made to push for the adoption of the lower sulfur, lower benzene, lower aromatics content. But we have in ARDA made a point that this must involve not just the product quality improvements, but also improvements in the vehicles that are used across the continent. So we had a session which took place a few months ago, African Union as a whole, in which there was a collusion of ideas to agree to present at the next meeting of the heads of governments for them to adopt these harmonized specifications. And there's a program which ECOWAS on its part has already approved, the Council of Ministers, and that was supposed to have kicked in 1st of January this year, that with immediate effect, no imported products should be accepted into the region less than 50 parts per million. And for the refineries that are existing within the region, they are given 4 years waiver. So by the end of 2024, they must all have installed plants to enable them produce only fuel that will meet 50 parts per million. And this roadmap has been approved by the heads of governments, and we expect each country to now enforce the roadmap. This effort is going to be moved to the higher level with the African Union within the next few months, so that in the continent as a whole, the protocol will also be adopted and the roadmap will be launched across the continent as a whole. In the Eastern African region, it has already been adopted. In fact, there is the intention to go even lower to 10 parts per million. In the South African sub-region, the same effort is being made. In the North African region, we have most of the countries there already meeting 50 ppm. There are about 2 or 3 that are yet to adopt. But this, in summary, is the roadmap across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure everyone understands why I had to ask you that question, sir. Thank you so much for that that comment on the question. Okay, so we've actually run out of time. Our session was supposed to end like 7 minutes ago. So I'm just going to ask you for your final words. If it's 30 seconds. So, madam, I would ask you for your final comments. It could be comments to the female gender or on anything at all.
Juste vos propos de clôture par rapport à ce thème.
Oui, alors c'est juste pour dire à mes jeunes sœurs, hein, à mes sœurs, à tout le monde que c'est le monde de l'industrie du raffinage, de la distribution, c'est un monde passionnant. C'est réellement un monde qui peut beaucoup impacter sur notre économie, c'est au cœur de nos économies. Donc c'est véritablement un bon levier pour agir sur nos économies et je voudrais inviter toutes les jeunes filles à aller vers des formations, des filières STEM, donc des filières scientifiques qui peuvent leur donner donc, cette opportunité de venir dans ce monde-là qui leur est accessible. Donc, il faut vraiment se départir de certaines perceptions erronées parce que ça peut, disons, biaiser un peu, ça peut les pousser à s'orienter vers d'autres secteurs alors que voilà, le secteur de l'industrie du raffinage et de la distribution du gaz et du pétrole, je dirais, c'est un monde passionnant qui leur est accessible et où elles peuvent véritablement jouer un rôle pour accroître nos économies en Afrique. Merci beaucoup. Elles peuvent le faire et voilà, je les invite à nous rejoindre.
Thank you very much. Just to tell my younger sisters that the refining and distribution sector is a very inciting environment, and it is a sector that can have an impact, a great impact in our respective economies in Africa. So I urge young girls to be interested in technical and scientific studies, which can enable them to get into this field, which is open to them. And I think that it is a way for them to have impact in our economy. So that's my message to my younger sisters. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, madame. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Engineer Tony, any final comments, sir?
I would want to thank Wien and Ren for inviting me to participate in this panel discussion. And I want to encourage the ladies and the private sector to get more involved in the sector. It is a positive movement that indeed more deregulation is occurring across the continent. We for many years had a situation where the government sector was leading, was the owner, really the sole owner of both the refineries and the distribution sector. Private sector went into distribution. Now they are going even into refining. The future is for the private sector to drive the sector completely. And the more it is driven by the private sector, the more we will see opportunities opening up for those who want to make an impact in the growth of the continent as a whole. And I will encourage the females not to feel excluded because the glass ceiling is actually breaking. And we encourage you to take your place. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, engineer. I was going to say that with our stilettos, we're definitely breaking that glass ceiling. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, madam. We've come to the end of this session. Oh my gosh. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I've taken down so many notes. I hear that our hashtag is trending. go for it. Engineer, that is kudos to you. It's trending, and thank you so much, madam. Thank you, engineer. When I was reading your bio, I was like, oh my God, how do I even start to ask questions in this kind of panel? But I'm so delighted that I was given this opportunity. Thank you for your contribution, and thank you for the viewers for logging in and staying on. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of this panel discussion. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much. Charlotte, over to you. Thank you so much, madam. And thank you, Engineer Tony. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Engineer Tony. And thank you, Serene, for production.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Go for it. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, then. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.